wanted to bring you the email addresses training that I had promised. I know that a lot of you were a little confused by what I'd said in terms of, what was important when it comes to your email addresses. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some common mistakes that agents make with email. We're going to talk about how to best protect yourself, and we're just going to basically just kind of go over some best practices. So some top mistakes that we see using Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, Outlook, Rogers, any of those kind of like overarching, obviously third-party emails. Using a brokerage-owned email address. And this is going to surprise a lot of you. So if your email is like at Sotheby's, at Remax, at Royal LePage, at EXP, we're also going to talk about using really heavy email signatures. We're also going to talk about using really long or really complicated domains. Okay, so a lot of this is going to be new for a lot of people. It may be confusing for some of you. And if you have questions, comment, let me know what your questions are. And let me know that you're watching. I've been really sick and I'm still sick, so I'm doing this because people were messaging me asking me for it. You're not going to get fun, bouncy Jess like you normally would, but I'm here and I'm doing my best for you. So why, let's start with why not to use like, Jess Lenouvel at gmail.com or Jess Lenouvel at Hotmail or Yahoo or Outlook or whatever. Number one, it looks unprofessional. Personal and business should be separated, right? You shouldn't have your personal email and your business email be in the same email, especially as your business grows. Some of these also have really terrible delivery rates or filters, right? So you could be missing emails, especially if you're using something like Hotmail. And you can't use things like emails like this to send via, third-party softwares like ActiveCampaign and things like that. It will get immediately filtered into spam. But really right off the bat, the biggest thing is, if your doctor sent you an email address that was, drj@gmail.com, how would that make him look? Again, it looks pretty unprofessional, and so there are better ways to do it. So when we're talking next, I want to talk about really just like making sure that you're protecting yourself. And the next piece of this is going to be using a brokerage owned email, right? And this is really, really important for a lot of people because I've made this mistake. I've seen agents and I've worked with agents who, have been I'm just going to use Keller Williams as an example, who've been at Keller Williams for 20 years and then decided that they were going to move brokerages. Well, they don't own their email address. They don't own that email address. Your brokerage owns it. And imagine being 20 years in and all of that correspondence and all of those connections and all of those attachments and all of that is gone. Your email address and the emails, your past emails, that's a really big part of your communication and part of your database and part of your list. And if you leave or change brokerages, even if you are absolutely in love with where you are, if you leave, people can't find you. And that's a really, really big deal, right? It's a really big deal. So again, this is a huge risk. And I know that there's a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I'm new and I wanted to use my brokerage email. You don't own it. There is a really big risk that you will lose everything. And sometimes, what'll happen is emails will get blocked. As soon as you hand in that resignation letter or you decide that you start having conversations about moving brokerages, your brokerage will completely shut down all of that. Will completely shut down all of your logins for everything, which will include your email addresses. And not being able to go back and pull through all of that information and all of that data right from the very beginning, even if you're a brand new agent. I don't care if you're a brand new agent or you've been in the business for 20 years, you should own your first and last name or your first and last name realtor or your first and last name realestate.com or .ca, no matter what. You should own a domain and your email address should be, your name at yourdomain.com or your name at yourdomain.ca. Okay, so you can host them on Gmail servers. We just don't want to be seeing at gmail.com or at hotmail.com. We want to be seeing something that looks professional, that looks like a real business, but that also is owned by you. and that you have control over, and you don't have to worry about anything changing or anything happening. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, just tell me that this makes sense as I'm going through this. The other thing that I want to talk about is heavy email signatures, right? Make your emails deliver as much as possible. The number one thing that is important when we're talking about emails is your delivery, especially marketing emails. So emails and links and heavy email signatures, and I know I don't know if it's if it's a legal thing in some places, but I get emails from agents that are one line, and then the disclosure on wire transfer fraud is like 40 pages. You do not need that in your email. You could have it as an attachment when you're doing deals with people. You don't need to have this giant wire transfer fraud is real. Unless it's required by your board, take it out. Because a lot of the time what ends up happening is you are actually hurting your business and you're hurting your marketing and your email delivery, because people can't, first of all, they're not loading. You're taking up tons and tons of data on people's phones, and it's being filtered into spam because it's not just a simple text email. So you want to make sure that your email signatures are very simple. Your phone number is clickable. So that's the other thing, is that sometimes what people will do is they'll like have a picture of their business card as their email signature, but you can't click on the phone number. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to call you. So type it out, make it clickable, and take away as much imagery as possible. So really, in most places, follow the rules of your board and follow the rules of where you are, but your first name, realtor, sales representative, whatever your title is, your direct phone number that's clickable, and your website maybe. You want to make it as simple as possible so that your emails actually deliver, because that's really, at the end of the day, what's the most important thing. It's not how fancy your email signature looks. The other thing the other mistake that people make is that the domain, or like, let's say your name's Jane Smith, and Jane Smith buys the domain Jane Smith Real Estate Agent in Austin, Texas. I'm just using as an example. Super, super crazy long. You will miss emails. People will get bounce backs from you because they're going to mistype it because it's too long. Simple is always going to be better and more memorable. So when you're going to choose your domain, think shorter, memorable, and easy, because your email address is then going to be your name or info or whatever at that domain name. And so you want it to be simple and easy so that people don't make mistakes, you don't miss emails, people don't get bounce backs from you. So basically those are some no-nos. So let's talk about what to do instead. Number one is own your own domain. Buy your domain with your name or your team name or whatever, right? I would rather own my name than let someone else own it. I don't even know where that quote's from, but I found it somewhere. So you want to own your own brand, you want to own your own name, especially now, especially in the digital age. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is own your own email addresses, right? So examples would be your first name at firstandlast.com. So as an example, Jess at jesslenovel.com, which I own. I also own Jess at thelistingslab.com, right? So I have not only my company name, my team name, but I also own my own personal name. You can do support at firstandlast.com. You can do info at firstandlast.com. You can do info at, therealityteam.com. Just make sure that you own whatever email that you're using and that you own the domain surrounding it. That is going to be really, really important. Okay? Planning for your future of your business is always going to be critical. So own as much as you can. Protect yourself, right? You may say, oh, well, I'm never going to leave my brokerage. You don't know that. What if something happened to your broker? What if someone new came in? What if your brokerage was sold and you really didn't like where you were? You have to be able to protect yourself. This is how we build in insurance into our own businesses. Your brand matters, and this is, for most people, one of the main forms of communication for most of your business. So your email addresses actually mean more than you probably think that it does. And so a lot of this just really comes down to, are we thinking about things really like a business, right? Are we looking at things and are we taking care of ourselves and are we taking care of the business the way that we would want to, or you know, the way that we would do it if we had the hindsight, right? So I know that this was a simple concept, but it's amazing how many people don't use it. And I get emails back and forth, and I email back and forth with agents all day, and it is pretty surprising and actually pretty shocking how many people are still using Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo or whatever. Even if it's like Jess Lenouvel Realtor at gmail.com, still looks pretty unprofessional. And at the end of the day, I also don't want to be, you know, Jess Lenouvel at remax.com, because I don't own that, right? So protect yourself, protect your list. Your list is still a really, really great asset. And I want you to think about all of your emails, all of your client emails, all of the attachments, all of your marketing, all of that as an asset too. Make your emails as deliverable as possible so that they're easily going to slip into people's inboxes. And yeah, it's as simple as that. But it's uncommon, is what I'm going to say.